Everyone instantly recognizes the name Porsche as the manufacturer of fast luxury cars that continue to push the limits of performance no matter what. But how many people know about the origin of this company and how closely it is intertwined with Volkswagen? Well, this is your opportunity to find out. Hello, business brains. Thank you for coming back to watch Businessman, where you get to know the business stories of the world's famous brands. Today, we're going to talk about the man who started the most amazing car company, Porsche. To tell you the truth, he didn't come from a wealthy family, but he managed to build such a large empire anyway. Incredibly, he didn't give up on his dream, despite having a lot of setbacks along the way. But before we continue with this video, we would like to request to all of you, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so now and click the bell icon to ensure that you don't miss any of the incredible videos we upload in the future. Now let us begin. Dr. Ferdinand Porsche is the man we're talking about. He was the founder of the Porsche car company and an Austrian-German automotive engineer. He's best known for developing the Volkswagen Beetle, the Auto Union racing car, the Mercedes-Benz SS/SSK, and several others. Now let's talk in detail. Porsche was born in what is now Vratislavice nad Nisou in Czech Republic in 1875. He was the third child of his parents. His father owned a plumbing workshop and was a master panel beater as well. Ferdinand was very good with technology. From a young age, he was specifically interested in electricity. He was already going to night classes at the Imperial Polytechnical College in Reichenberg in Czech Republic. During the day, he was still helping his father in his shop. Porsche landed a job with Bella Egger and Company Electrical Company in Vienna through a referral and moved there in 1893 at the age of 18 years old. He worked in Vienna and went to school part-time at what is now the Vienna University of Technology. He went there after work whenever he could. Aside from going to school there, Porsche didn't get any formal engineering training. During his 5 years working with Bella Egger, he built their first electric wheel hub motor. The idea for it came from the American inventor Wellington Adams, and Porsche raced it in 1897. At the end of World War I, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire broke up, he chose to become a Czechoslovak citizen. Either Adolf Hitler or Joseph Goebbels made Porsche a German citizen in 1934. Then, Porsche joined Jacob Lohner and Company, a factory in Vienna that made coaches for Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria and the monarchs of the UK, Sweden, and Romania. In 1896, Jacob Lohner began making cars in the Transdanubian suburb of Floridsdorf, which was run by his brother, Ludwig Lohner. The Egger-Lohner car was their first design. When it was first shown off in Vienna, Austria, on June 26 of 1898, all of the essential parts were marked with the code P1, which stood for Porsche, number 1, and meant that it was Ferdinand Porsche's first design. The Egger-Lohner was a car that looked like a carriage and was powered by 2 electric motors inside the hubs of the front wheels. This type of drivetrain was easy to change to 4-wheel drive by adding 2 more electric motors to the back wheels. In 1900, an Englishman named E.W. Hart ordered a car with 4 engines. In December of that year, the car, which was called Toujours Content, was shown at the Paris World Exhibition. Even though this one-of-a-kind car was made to race and break records, the fact that it had 1,800 kilograms of lead-acid batteries was a big problem. Porsche was still working for Lohner when he made the Lohner Porsche Mixed Hybrid in 1901. Instead of a big battery pack, it had a German-made internal combustion engine. Daimler powered an electric generator, which in turn powered the electric motors in the wheel hubs. A small battery pack was put in as a backup. This is the first hybrid vehicle that runs on both gasoline and electricity. At the time, gears and couplings that worked well enough were not available, so he decided to make it a series hybrid which is now more common in diesel-electric or turbo-electric train locomotives than in cars. Up until 1906, more than 300 loaner Porsche chassis were sold, but most of them were two-wheel drive trucks, buses, and fire engines. There were some buses with four-wheel drive, but there were no four-wheel drive cars. The cars could go up to 56 kilometers per hour and broke several Austrian speed records. They also won the Exelberg Rally in 1901, with Porsche driving a front-wheel drive hybrid. Later, Daimler and Panhard gave it more powerful engines, which helped it break even more speed records. In 1905, Porsche was given the Potting Prize for being the best car engineer in Austria. In 1902, he was forced to join the army. He was a driver for Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, who was the Crown Prince of Austria and whose death is thought to have helped start World War I. Then in 1906, Austro-Daimler hired Porsche to be their head designer. The most famous Austro-Daimler car made by Porsche was made for the Prince Henry trial. It was named after the younger brother of Wilhelm II, Prince Heinrich of Prussia. This streamlined car with 85 horsepower won the first three places, and its nickname, Prince Henry, is still better known than its model name, Model 27/80. He also made a 30 horsepower model called the Maja. It was named for Mercedes Jelinek's younger sister, Andrei Maja, or Maya Jelinek. In 1916, Porsche became managing director and got an honorary doctorate from the Vienna University of Technology. Porsche kept making cars, and his 1922 design won 43 of the 53 races it was entered in. Porsche left Austro-Daimler in 1923 because he did not agree with how cars would be made in the future. A few months later, Daimler Motoring Gesellschaft hired Porsche to be their technical director in Stuttgart, Germany, which was already a major center for the German auto industry. In 1924, the Stuttgart Technical University gave him another honorary doctorate for his work at Daimler Motoring Gesellschaft in Stuttgart. He was also given the honorary title of professor. He came up with several very successful race car designs while working at Daimler Motoring Gesellschaft. In the 1920s, the Mercedes-Benz SSK was the best car in its class. It was the last in a line of models that all had superchargers. In 1926, Daimler Motoring Gesellschaft and Benz NC joined forces to form Daimler-Benz. The cars they made together were called Mercedes-Benz from that point on. The Daimler-Benz board did not like Porsche's ideas for a small, lightweight Mercedes-Benz though. He left in 1929 to work for Steyr Automobile, but because of the Great Depression, he was let go. After that, Porsche returned to Stuttgart and founded his consulting firm. With the help of money from his son-in-law, the Austrian lawyer Anton Pitsch, and Adolf Rosenberger, Porsche was able to hire Karl Rabe, Erwin Commenda, Franz Xaver Reimespies, and his own son, Ferry Porsche. Their first job was to design a car for Wanderer that was in the middle class. After that, other designs were commissioned. As the business grew, Porsche decided to work on his own design as well. It was based on the small car idea he had when he worked at Daimler-Benz in Stuttgart. He used a loan from his life insurance to pay for the project. Later, Zundap decided to help fund the project. But after they did well with motorcycles, they lost interest. The sponsorship was then taken over by NSU, but the company lost interest because of the high costs of making the tools. Due to the bad economy, Porsche had trouble getting orders to build cars, so he started a subsidiary company called High Performance Engines Ltd. to build a racing car for which he had no customer. Based on Max Wagner's mid-engine layout of the 1923 Benz Tropfenwagen, or teardrop aerodynamic design, the experimental P-Wagon project racing car, P stood for Porsche, was made to fit the rules of the 750 kilogram formula. The main rule of this formula was that the car couldn't weigh more than 750 kilograms without the driver, fuel, oil, water, and tires. In 1932, Audi, DKW, Porsche, and Wanderer, four car companies that were having trouble, joined together to form Auto Union GmbH. Chairman of the board of directors, Baron Claus von Ortzen, wanted a showpiece project, so fellow director Adolf Rosenberger insisted that von Ortzen meet with Porsche, who had done work for him before. At the 1933 Berlin Motor Show, German Chancellor Adolf Hitler said that he wanted every German to own a car or tractor in the future. He also announced two new programs, the People's Car and a state-sponsored motor racing program to build high-speed German automotive industry. To start this, Mercedes-Benz was to get a 500,000 RM grant every year. These projects led to two projects for Porsche. They also set a pattern for the rest of the decade, with Porsche working on more projects for the German government, like the Tiger Tank and the Elephant Tank Destroyer. Hitler gave Porsche a contract to design a people's car, or Volkswagen, which would be similar to the Type 12 car that he made for Zundap. In 1935, the first two prototypes were done. Then, there were several more pre-production batches. The car looked like the Tatra V570 and Tatra 97, which were designed by Hans Ledwinka around the same time. This led to a lawsuit against Porsche, which was accused of breaking Tatra's patent about cooling the back engine with air. The case was put on hold when the Germans invaded Czechoslovakia. After World War II, Volkswagen made a settlement payment. Since the National Socialist government hired Porsche to build the Volksauto, he was known as the Great German Engineer. Hitler thought that Czechoslovakians were less than human, and he told Porsche that he should become a German citizen. A few days later, he did file a notice at a Czechoslovak consulate in Stuttgart that he was giving up his Czechoslovak citizenship. In 1937, he joined the SS and the Nazi Party, and then he hired SS members to work at his factory as security guards and drivers. He later set up a special unit called SS Starnberg Volkswagen. In 1942, he was promoted to SS Oberführer, and during the war, he was also given the SS Ehrenring and the War Merit Cross. As the war went on, his ideas for how to solve new problems got more complicated, and he got a reputation as a mad scientist, especially with Albert Speer. Near Fallersleben, a new city was built for the Volkswagen factory. During the war, almost all of the cars made there were military versions of the Kubelwagen and Schwimmwagen. After the war ended, they started making a lot of cars, which became known as the Beetle. Wolfsburg is the name of the city now. It is still the home of the Volkswagen Group. Hans Stuck had met Hitler before he became chancellor. Unable to obtain a seat at Mercedes, he accepted Rosenberger's request to join him, von Ortzen, and Porsche in contacting the chancellor. In a conference at the Reich Chancellery, Hitler agreed with Porsche that it would be better for the glory of Germany if two businesses developed the invention. As a result, Hitler decided to split the money between Mercedes and Auto Union, giving each company 250,000 RM. This infuriated Mercedes, who had already produced the Mercedes-Benz W25, and resulted in a furious rivalry between the two firms on and off the racing track until World War II. Auto Union relocated Hucklistungs-Motor GmbH and the P-Wagen project to Chemnitz after acquiring state funding and purchasing Hucklistungs-Motor GmbH for 75,000 RM and the P-Wagen project. As Porsche got increasingly absorbed in the construction of the Wolfsburg facility, he delegated his racing projects to his son Ferin. World War II's onset in 1939 was the only thing that halted the dominance of the silver arrows of both brands. The VK4501, also called Tiger P, was a heavy tank that Porsche made in 1942. Because the drive system was so complicated, a competing design from Henschel was chosen to be made instead. 90 already built chassis were turned into self-propelled anti-tank guns. These were put into service in 1943 as the Panzerjäger Tiger P, also called Ferdinand. The Ferdinand was powered by a hybrid electric powertrain and was armed with a long-barrel version of the 88mm anti-aircraft gun. Most of the time, vehicles were lost because they got stuck or broke down, so crews often had to destroy their own vehicles to keep them from being taken. It had a kill ratio of almost 10 to 1, but like most German war vehicles, it was hard to keep up with repairs because of a lack of supplies. This made the vehicles less effective and forced crews to destroy many vehicles that could have been used. As part of the war reparations, Porsche was asked in November of 1945 to continue designing the Volkswagen in France and to move the factory equipment there. While in France, Porsche was also asked to advise on the design and production of the upcoming Renault 4CV. This put Porsche at odds with Pierre Lefaucheux, a former resistance fighter who had just been named head of Renault. The Volkswagen project never got off the ground because of disagreements in the French government and opposition from the French auto industry. On December 15th of 1945, French police arrested Porsche, Anton Pitch, and Ferry Porsche as war criminals because they were close friends of the former Führer and might have worked with the enemy. Ferry was set free after 6 months, but Ferdinand and Anton were locked up in Baden-Baden, Paris, and Dijon. Ferry worked hard to keep the company going while his father was in prison. He also started a business fixing cars, water pumps, and winches. A deal was made with Piero Duccio for a Grand Prix race car called the Type 360 Sissitalia. The new 4WD design was never used in a race. Most of Pitch and Porsche's jail time in the trial could be blamed on Ferdinand Porsche's work for his country's war effort and his personal relation with Hitler. According to the Porsche family, the whole thing was a thinly veiled attempt to get them to pay money and work with Renault. But the family lied about how many people were forced to work for them and how big their business was during the war. Later, it was found that about 300 people, including Poles and Russians, were forced to work. During the war, it was common for German factories with this many workers to use slave labor, usually with Slavic prisoners of war who were often worked to death. After the war, the French government said that Pitch and Porsche had to pay 1,000,000 francs, which was sometimes called a ransom and sometimes called bail. The family had trouble getting this amount of money at first, but they were able to get it through a contract with Sissitalia. During a trial, witnesses testified that no French prisoners had been brought to the plant to work there. In addition to working with Sissitalia, the company started working on a new design, the Porsche 356, which was the first car to carry the Porsche brand name. The company was then in Mund, Carinthia. They have moved there from Stuttgart to avoid bombing by the Allies. In an old sawmill in Mund, the company began making the Porsche 356. They only made 49 cars, and each one was built by hand. In 1949, the Porsche family relocated back to Stuttgart, but they were unsure how to proceed with restarting their firm. Although the banks refused to extend their credit, since the company's plant was still subject to an American embargo and so could not be used as security, the company did still have a significant amount of resources. Therefore, Ferry Porsche traveled to several Volkswagen dealerships across the country with one of the limited edition 356 vehicles that Munn had produced. He did this to drum up business for the company. He requested that the dealerships make an upfront payment for the cars that were being ordered. Instead of the aluminum body that was utilized in the initial limited Munn-produced series, the series production version that was manufactured in Stuttgart included a body constructed of steel that was welded to the central tube platform chassis. When Ferry Porsche brought the firm back to life, he anticipated a series production total of approximately 1,500 automobiles. Over 78,000 Porsche 356 were produced during the subsequent 17 years after their introduction. Later on, Volkswagen hired Porsche to perform extra consultancy work for the company, and Porsche was paid a royalty for each Volkswagen Beetle that was produced. As a result, Porsche was able to generate a comfortable income thanks to the production of over 20 million Type 1 vehicles. Following the end of World War II, Porsche made its first trip back to the Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg in November of 1950. In the course of this tour, Porsche had conversations with Heinrich Nordhoff, the president of Volkswagen, about the future of Volkswagen Beetles, which were currently being manufactured in huge quantities. After a few weeks had passed, Porsche ended up having a stroke. Unfortunately, he did not make a full recovery and passed away on January the 30th of 1951. Both the International Motorsports Hall of Fame and the Car Engineer of the Century Awards were posthumously given to Porsche in 1999. Porsche was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1996. So that was all about Porsche. Now it's time to wrap up this video. We hope that it inspired you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel. We will be back soon with another amazing story.